Welcome back, everybody. Hopefully you're tuning in, and this is something that's becoming a little bit more familiar to you, this podcast that Wim and I are hosting, and that others are joining Wim for these different episodes. But we really have a heart, again, to really just communicate to people in the community of Top Left that we're passionate about not just the tool, Top Left, and software development, but we're really passionate about this idea of business growth. And what are the ingredients that go into making a business successful? And so Wim and I meet occasionally in this platform to just discuss issues that we feel are important from our experience and also what we're hoping to achieve. So if you're new to this podcast, you see two people on your screen, or you hear two voices, depending on if you're watching or listening. My name is Steven. I'm the VP People for Top Left. And Wim is the CEO and founder of Top Left. And so we have Top Left, the SaaS company, the software that Wim has developed. But we also have two companies that we run in addition, which is Crafty Penguins, our Linux consultancy, and our MSP division that serves more local clients for their technology needs. So Wim, hello again. And looking forward to our thoughts. So what's on your mind today?
I thought with the continued discussions we've been having already in our businesses with the planning we're doing around roles and jobs and setting people up to win and getting results. And we've been just in our meetings yesterday and today talking about accountability, responsibility, accountability charts, because we do traction EOS, we do scorecards, all these things. And it goes into job descriptions, and these words have meaning. So I think even you and I disagree on some of them or different interpretations. So I thought let's just continue that discussion we were having before. And I think it's very valuable for every team, every leader to get really clear on these words, what the intentions, how we relate, how we manage people, how we lead people. There's accountability, responsibility, and ownership. So how would you describe ownership, I guess?
Well, I think the thing that we've been talking about recently is the difference between accountability and responsibility. And one of the comments that I made, and I think a lot about this, Wim, is I'm not a big fan necessarily of the term accountability. I'm okay with the concept of accountability, like being held accountable, like it's part of life, it's part of work, and it's necessary to keep things moving and to achieve results. But to me, the word accountability and its related definitions seems to carry somewhat of a negative connotation and almost a punitive connotation, because to hold someone accountable typically means that something has gone wrong. So I like the idea of ownership better because it has much more of a proactive kind of results-oriented feel to it. And so I am much more willing to raise my hand if someone were to say, who is owning this particular part of the company? It doesn't mean that that person has to do everything, but who owns this function or who owns this rock, as opposed to who in the end is accountable for this thing. I'm still in process in terms of thinking about it, but these are the things that I've been thinking about lately as far as the differences in those terms. What do you think, Wim?
I think we have the same concept. We just use the different words.
Yeah.
Right. It's a bit of hair splitting on the words we use, but it's the same kind of definition. Like, I think accountable, it should be a proactive thing. It's not about blame and like, hey, you missed your number and now we're going to dock your pay or you're not going to get your bonus, whatever. So I don't think of it that way, but there needs to be an accounting. But somebody needs to own that metric. I use that word as well. So if somebody owns, let's say, you got to keep your number of let's say in an MSP and you got a service team, somebody should own the metric of how many new tickets are there that have not been triaged and processed. They own it and they've got to act on it. Not just report on it, but do something about it, which might be talking to other people and starting the conversations and reporting back. Or it could be in marketing of somebody's accountable in that metric. They own the metric of, let's say, how many people show up to the webinars we do every month. And they got to get the results. And we set a goal and they agree on the goal. And they report back on it, how they're doing every day, every month. But if we don't have the accountability and we're not specific on that, and we give them a list of responsibilities and they're checking it off, they're like, I'm doing my job, then you get people are feeling they're productive and they're doing what the job is, what the expected job is, but we're not getting a result. And that's not effective. It's busy work.
I absolutely agree with that, Wim, and maybe I just have a little bit of PTSD when I think of some words just from previous careers and lifetimes, but I completely agree. Like at the end of the day, there's someone that owns some process or some metric, but that doesn't mean that that same person is responsible to achieve that, because that goes into our other conversations about building teams and surrounding ourselves with people that are really good at implementation and really good at the tactics and those types of things, so that people in higher management and leadership positions can talk about the strategy and the metrics and then hold each other accountable or take ownership of those things so that other people can be clear on what it is that they need to be doing. So how important is the chart? I'm talking about the accountability chart, the org chart. How important is that to getting real clear on who is in what box and how the lines work together and how things get done?
I think very clear. And there's a direct, just I've learned this, kind of learned the lesson recently of that direct connection between the metrics, the scorecard, and the roles. It's like if you can get each role of having maybe 1 to 3 metrics that they own, not 10, not 20, not 50, because there's no way you can get them all green and happy. You got to focus on these core ones. And maybe you can break it down to help you get the traction on there. But you've got, you should know, no leader should have more than 5 to 7 direct reports. That's kind of a sweet spot. 4 to 7. I would tend towards less. And each person has their own metrics that they own and they got to report on and they got to hit. That's power. Just clarity that people know what's expected, what's required, and that somebody else is doing theirs and working together, we're all going to hit what we want. So I think the clarity on the accountability chart is key. I'm a big fan of the Traction EOS systems. If you're watching the video version of this on YouTube, and you'll see on my back wall, it's on that side right there, got the cover blown up. And so we've implemented that in our companies. And if you look at the back of the book, it explains where to start with implementing Traction EOS. And it's actually not the rocks. It's not the weekly level 10. It's not your vision traction 1-page business plan. It's your accountability chart. Is the right seats on the bus and get the right person in there. And then you get into the data and the metrics and the other things. But I've just seen it too often is we had an accountability chart and we weren't living it. It was, we were living something else. So we were fooling ourselves. And that can go on for years.
Yeah.
To get clear, face the reality, and I just have the discussion and agree this is what it's going to be. And that's where the ownership comes from. So I've seen a lot where in my mind, somebody owned that initiative, that metric, that rock. And then when we come back to check later, like, why is it not done? Is they actually didn't feel like they were full 100% owners on it. It wasn't clear. It wasn't written down. It wasn't reinforced.
Yeah.
So getting clear on it, hashing it out, defining what are you owning? What are your responsibilities? And do you have the time to do it? Or do we need to pare this back? Those conversations need to be had.
Yeah. So as we look to maybe wind down this particular time, Wim, maybe let's identify maybe 2 or 3 takeaways for people who are listening. So when it comes to what we've talked about today, accountability, ownership, responsibility, right people, right seats, org charts, traction, what are maybe 2 or 3 things that we can leave with our listeners that they can take away from today's topic?
I think it's going back to the dictionary and these words that we threw out: accountability, responsibility, ownership, and getting a shared understanding in our team. It doesn't matter what you call it. You might come up with your own fun word or leverage your core values, but going back to the meaning of these words and why they're important.
I think to add to that, I think a second takeaway would be, so if the first one is just clarity on the terms, I think that's super important. But secondly, I think you mentioned this, Wim, really being clear on not just the terms, but the roles, traction. And you say things like right people, right seats. I think everyone who's listening would be familiar with that jargon. But yeah, being really clear on what it is that you need. So it makes things like ownership, accountability, responsibility clear and easy to define if those roles are clear. Anything else that would be helpful?
Well, I guess, just looking at some other things here is like you've got obviously people's background comes in, right? There's all the emotional side and baggage we bring. So when somebody says a word like that, it triggers something, right? You can have PTSD, as you said, because of something happened when we were young or previous employment. So there people have that. And then if they're not native English speakers, they can bring their own things as well, that it means something, a bit different connotation in another language. There's that. And then somebody who could be very another ongoing theme we have is promoting people from within, from a frontline position to a management position to leadership, is they may take great pride in their work, ownership as a technician, as somebody executing and doing creative work. So they're responsible, they're accountable, they do great work. I'm like, hey, let's make them a manager, but they can't figure it out how to hold other people accountable. So they're doing the work. Now they get overwhelmed and burnt out. So that's where somebody could be the get the role, want the role capacity to do a role for doing the hands-on work, but you move into management and they don't have it. And it might take coaching or education if they're willing to learn it. But those conversations are going on as well. That's another dynamic.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, amazing, Wim. Great discussion as usual. And for those that are listening or watching, reach out to us if you have questions or comments or feedback or want to carry on the discussion. I believe our contact info will be kind of in the description below. So don't hesitate to reach out. We'd love to carry on the conversation. So Wim, thanks for your insight as usual, and look forward to the next conversation.
Yep, you're welcome. Thanks. See you around, Steve.